All right, let's start with your house. In the house, there's ferocious jockeying still for the Speaker of the House. So all eyes are focused on Kevin McCarthy, who before our surprisingly narrow victory seemed likely to coast into the job, which he has coveted for many years. So let's start here. Notwithstanding support from, among others, Donald Trump, Marjorie Taylor Greene, there is this so-called group of five of arch right-wing representatives who are vowing to oppose him implacably no matter what, which would leave him one vote short. Is this the opposition really entrenched and will never change, or is it just a negotiating tactic to try to shake loose some more concessions for the far right? Any thoughts? We're not in that crowd very much.
Same here, not in that crowd very much. Probably both. I mean, we have in that coalition of five some members who are very different in terms of their approach to things. I mean, if you want to talk about people who are implacable, Chip Roy and the way he goes to the floor most days to object to what should be suspension votes, just to gum things up. Certainly forcing the speaker decision to be delayed is a way to gum things up. And so far it's working because everything flows from there. We can't get our committees organized. Can't even have a swearing in until the speaker is chosen. Right. So on the other hand, there are some concrete things that they're trying to achieve. And if McCarthy folds, then maybe some of them happen.
Well, and the most radical demand seems to be this idea of a snap vote to get rid of the speaker at any time. Quite a concession to make if you're becoming speaker.
Love it.
But man, what other end game might they have besides the so-called snap vote? And is that, in fact, something they really have plausibly are hoping for?
Yeah, look, the motion to vacate or the snap vote is one of the key things that we know that people who are negotiating with McCarthy would like to get. Every McCarthy ally that you talk to, though, is very clear that that's not a concession that they want him to make. I think you also, and as I've been covering this, it's been really fascinating to watch how McCarthy went from being someone who would stand in front of us in Congress and say he was going to have a 40 or 50 seat majority. He's now dealing with 4 or 5. I mean, to watch the way that Nancy Pelosi has had to juggle all the different parts of her caucus, and she is masterful at this. McCarthy now, with less years of practice, will have to do an even tighter balancing act. And you got to imagine that Pelosi staying in the halls of Congress, being able to still have a front row seat to this, is going to bring a little bit of glee to an otherwise sad caucus. I'm sorry, Congresswoman, who's now going to be in the minority. But at the same time, for McCarthy, all these concessions that might seem really small on how conferences are run, how committees are put together, this could all end up having really big implications because it gives all of his individual members the power to be the House version of a Joe Manchin. And we know what that looks like. So, and the other thing I think I would add too is like, when you think about the group of 5 who are the hard, no, never Kevins, like Bob Good and Matt Gaetz have a different operating mindset than like Chip Roy. Chip Roy is in this on like the principles of how the House functions. Gaetz and Good are in this for entirely different reasons. And in the Gaetz sense, a lot of it is like also just the agitating of it that he really enjoys too.
Besides that, what are his reasons? What else does Gaetz care about?
I have a strong view on him from many a green room conversation, and as the Congresswoman knows, he was a active irritant on the House Judiciary Committee when I was counsel for the impeachment and working with the Congresswoman. What Gaetz wants is the maximum he can get for Gaetz. He's all about Matt Gaetz. So whatever the pie is that is in front of him at any given moment, he wants the largest slice of that pie for himself. He's the ultimate snake oil salesman, consequences be damned, right down to the spectator's shoes. He expresses his character for everyone to see. So he's got a Matt Gaetz play here, and really no regard for principle. Probably what that means is he wants as much sway as possible for the election denial MAGA faction that has taken over now. A majority of the House of Representatives is going to be a part of the cult. And Gaetz and MTG, one of them is playing the inside game with McCarthy, and Gaetz is playing the outside game. That's what it's about. It's a power grab for Team Crazy.
Hey, speaking of the inside game, I'll bite on this. Just curious, and I think the listeners might be too. So it's the middle of the impeachment. You're in the green room. Does he play like nice and tell you jokes and, God forbid, show you pictures? Or is he, in fact, teeth bared and nasty?
No. Meadows and Jordan are team nasty. At least to me. I don't know, Mary Kay. You don't have to comment because you have to live with Jordan now as your likely chair. But Gaetz has always been nice as possible to me.
On the new rubric of hyperpartisanship, he's also been one who would cross the aisle on things. He was always good for a weed bill.
Hey, everyone. We're taking a quick break to ask you to take a second to like and subscribe. It's a quick thing that really helps the show. Thanks, and back to the video. Whom does the stalemate hurt most? And as that drags along, where does the pressure get stronger?
Well, after the headlines of the last couple of years, I am so enjoying the Republicans in disarray headlines. I mean, as we are moving very smoothly through our caucuses process, we had, unanimous consent on the three leaders. Our committee assignments are getting sorted out very amicably. People of quality and intellect getting assigned to run committees and such, well, to be the ranking members on committees. We're just seeing this disarray on the other side. Day. And I mean, ultimately, it's bad for the country, but a little bit of karma.
And Ali, so, on the Joe Manchin point, there's some talk about a group trying to play hardball back with the Never Kevins. What sort of options or levers do the, McCarthy crowd have to try to bring them to heel?
Exactly what they're doing, continuing to try. It's not that they're trying to talk to the Never Kevins. They're trying to talk to like the maybe possibly Never Kevins with a little asterisk, which is like, if we get what we want, we would come over to the side. The people who are still squarely in the Freedom Caucus, who are like Chip Roy, who are in these conversations, meeting in the leader's office every day, trying to haggle through, is it 72 hours that you need as a gap time between when a bill is introduced? That could mean working weekends. And I think all of us who cover the Hill or work on the Hill are like, interesting. Like, am I now working Saturdays all of a sudden? But like, those are like the substantial rules that certain people are actually pushing for during this period of time. The motion to vacate is the sexy one, obviously, because we all watched what it looked like when Boehner lived under threat of that from people like then Congressman Mark Meadows. And we know the insanity that ensued there when margins were much bigger. But here, watching with margins this small, I mean, that's why that's the sexy one. But then just in terms of the literal way that the House runs, those are the kinds of concessions that they're trying to get now. And that doesn't seem sexy, but what I say on MSNBC all the time is like, just because it's not sexy doesn't mean it's not going to have huge implications for the country, especially at a point where like, this is a conference where you're actively having the other side of the building in the Senate try to figure out like, how much basic governing they have to do to keep the literal lights of the government on, because they're not sure that the House Republican side of it is on board. Right. And I think that's the prospect that's the most, interesting and all-encompassing if you zoom out a little bit, is like, okay, are we just like all on board for running the government? And like, that's sort of up for debate a little bit right now, especially when I'm talking to my Republican sources on the Senate side.
I think that's exactly right. I mean, the disarray and the extremism among the House Republicans, I don't think they can govern. They're already talking about all the things that they just want to investigate and shut down and use as wedges. We're going to be depending on the Senate, which is a little bit daunting given how slowly the Senate moves.
The world's most deliberative body. Thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed this video and other Talking Feds content, please take a second to like and subscribe. Talk to you later.